Hey guys, what's going on? Predator back with a brand new video. Today, we're going to be talking about why learning to fight is important. Not for the ability to be able to fight, obviously that is a large portion of it as well, but for the ability that it gives you and the boost it gives you to your confidence, knowing that you could handle certain situations if it happened to go there as well as you possibly could have. So I am in no means an expert in fighting at all. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of background about me. I've done a year of Muay Thai and 2 years of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Still technically a white belt in BJJ, but I have a bronze medal from my first tournament and a gold medal from my second. I am 6'4" and I weighed in at my last tournament at 300 pounds, which is right around my walk around weight, which makes me a pretty large person to begin with. But with that said, heavyweight brackets are usually 220 pounds and up, so I went with anybody that was 260 to 310 to 320 in these tournaments that I've competed in, with guys that have possibly been doing this longer than me and just competed more than I have. So let's take it back a couple years. I had this delusion, much like a lot of larger people do. Anybody usually over 6'1", 6'2", thinks they can usually just take anybody. And usually that's almost true. You find situations where smaller guys feel the need to prove something to larger guys, but usually your size gets you out of a fight. Not for any technical reasons, but usually if you got hit by a guy that's 300 pounds, it's going to hurt a lot more than a guy that's 165 pounds, which is why there's weight classes in professional fighting. Would you rather get punched by Conor McGregor or Francis Ngannou? I'm taking Conor. So much like a lot of people my size, I had this delusion that I could fight, even though I had been in no street fights, and almost every time I had grappled with my buddies that competed in wrestling in high school, I would lose. I almost felt like this was a natural thing that I had. My dad had been in more fights than I had, my brother had been in more fights than I had, and they were, I wouldn't say relatively successful. Obviously, stories come with a little bit of exaggeration on their side. As much as I want to say my dad was telling the truth every time, he did tell me about a couple losses, so maybe that evened it out. And my brother had been in one where it kind of fell even. So I just kind of had this natural thought that I could do better in fights than a lot of other people because of how big I was and how much harder I hit naturally based off weight. And then I went to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The first time I went for a couple months, had a stint, had an issue with my heart, and then I came back to it later, a couple years later. And my first stint, my instructor was 165 pounds and 5'8", and I got tossed, thrown, and hurt in ways that I didn't know were feasibly possible for another man. Now, granted, this wasn't striking, and I don't know that I would have been able to take him in striking either. And it definitely in a street fight, there are no set rules like punches or kicks only versus grappling only. I do know that if I met him on the street, I would run far, far away from him. To this day, I saw him at a tournament, I shook his hand, and if he was angry at me, I'm going to leave. So fast forward a couple years after my heart issue, I start training Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Pennsylvania. Same thing, instructor was roughly the same size, maybe a tiny bit taller, but fought at 155 in MMA fights, walked around about $165, $170. My Muay Thai instructor, a little bit taller, he was about 6 foot, 6'1", maybe 200 pounds at best, was a police officer, or was in training to be a police officer, but he was maybe about 85 now that I'm thinking about it. And both times I went with these guys, I got smoked almost every time. Whether it was a Muay Thai sparring round, I feel like I was getting destroyed, or whether it was a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu roll, I felt like I was getting destroyed. And then I started to progress a little bit more. And so when you start training these things, usually the new guy gets beat up. It's where guys that are somewhere in that more experienced range get a little bit more time to practice their techniques or things they want to develop. That's the stage I'm currently in right now. We get some new guys in, and I have the ability to practice things that I want to develop, things I want to add to my game. Like recently I started adding arm bars from mount into my game, or arm bars from S-mount, which isn't something I would ever try against anybody else. But now that I have new guys, I can kind of figure out my tweaks and learn a little bit differently and perfect the method of an S-mount armbar. But now I have a confidence in myself that for the most part, you have to remember that a lot of people in the world are untrained because they have this delusion that they could take anybody they see in a fight just based off pure rage, or even funnier, the people that say they see red. I laugh at that. I know people that say they see red, and I just kind of have to let them do their thing, because if you see red and you don't focus and you can't function in a fight, you're going to get destroyed. You got about 30-second, 45-second burst of energy, and then after that, it's going to be an actual fight. All I got to do is stick out that initial barrage. Joe Rogan said that on a podcast, actually. After the 30, 45 seconds, they didn't want to fight. They just want to hit you, and now you're going to fight. But now I walk around with not so much like an arrogance about it, but a confidence in my ability to at least make it out of a lot of situations. Like, if anything were to escalate now, I'd obviously try to de-escalate it as step number one. But two, if it came down to that with any untrained person on the street, I have confidence in my ability to handle the situation with as little damage to anybody as possible. Whether that means restraining him or putting him to sleep or whatever the case is, honestly, it'd probably just be restraints. I don't feel comfortable enough with putting somebody to sleep, obviously. Nor do I know if that'll ever actually happen, because hopefully I don't find myself in those situations. The more you do this type of thing, the less you know about the people walking around the street. Some of the people I train with are the most unassuming people: psychologists, counselors at school, IT professionals. Some of the people I train with are the most unassuming people I've ever met in my life. Based off that alone, I attempt to try not to get involved in anything that could possibly get escalated, which is mostly my main goal, day-to-day basis, when somebody does get a little riled up. But it gives me that confidence to be able to walk into that situation without that nervous and that anxiety. You're going to get that burst of anxiety anyways, but it's more controlled because I've been in those situations before where somebody's swinging at me, somebody clips me in the head, hits me in the nose, I've hyperextended my elbows, I've busted up my foot pretty bad, I had a giant welt on it, I've gone home with bruises on almost every part of my body because of these things. So I'm ready for almost whatever contact is going to come, and I know how to at least handle it. Maybe I'm not going to walk away with the situation victorious, because I don't know if that guy's a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and has been in 4 MMA fights. I still might lose, but I have more confidence in my ability, especially against an untrained individual. But again, everything's so unassuming that it almost becomes a necessity to learn the basics of any kind of martial art. I prefer Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as they're more closely related to street fighting, but there are people that you can get by in karate, and karate can take an untrained individual. Taekwondo could do the same. Krav Maga is, I believe that is Israeli Special Defense Fighting, their program. So it's very useful, and a lot of these people are very unassuming. So keep that in mind. But learning how to fight at any rate is important for that. At least confidence in your ability to handle a situation to the best of your ability, instead of having the arrogance of thinking that you're going to walk away unscathed. You have the confidence to know that you're going to go in and do your best to get out of it as close to unscathed as possible, whether that's the case or not. It takes away the arrogance and replaces it with a good understanding of what could possibly happen, because a lot of people just don't grasp that part of it. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 500 subscribers. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.